Coming up, we spend a beautiful weekend around Dublin, a cultural compact city offering a wide range of experiences for the humble tourist. We'll be sharing why a stop by Trinity College is a must, highlight numerous stops along a local city walk, and despite neither of us usually enjoying a Guinness or whiskey, why one of these drinking tours massively exceeded our expectations and absolutely should not be missed. Plus, we'll be delving into Ireland's fascinating history, whether a traditional Irish music show is worth the time, and trying to unpick just what makes the Irish countryside so very, very special. If you're new here, then welcome. We make travel movies from around the world, hoping you might just find your next holiday inspiration. This is Suitcase Monkey, spending what might just be a perfect 3 days in Dublin. We begin at Trinity College, Ireland's oldest and highest-ranking university. Following the footsteps of super talented people such as Oscar Wilde, Bram Stoker and Samuel Beckett, it's a great place to wander and feel inadequate. But it's the old library, opened in 1732, that's home to its biggest gems. The Book of Kells, considered amongst Ireland's greatest cultural treasures, and the Long Room, one of the most impressive libraries you're likely to walk through. Heading inside, the exhibition begins with the Book of Kells itself, a lavishly illustrated medieval manuscript. This printed work holds a monster 680 pages, but that is still shorter than Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. But unlike those, this one is written in Latin and across the skins of 185 calves. Covering the 4 Gospels, whether its words resonate with you or not, it is a masterwork in calligraphy and design, and can be equally viewed as art. But whilst in here the devil's in the detail, the 300-year-old Long Room is quite the opposite. You might notice that some of its shelves are empty, and that's because it's currently in the middle of a years-long renovation project. But it's in here that you'll also find the original Brian Boru harp. Initially played 700 years ago to entertain royal families, its unique shape eventually became the Irish coat of arms, but today is most found on a pint of Guinness. We'll be sampling all things Guinness and whiskey tomorrow, so I'll save more on that for later. For those thinking of actually visiting the places featured in this video, I've linked everywhere we visit in the description below, and I've also created a free PDF travel guide for those who want everything in written form. At the end of this video, I'll also be discussing transport, accommodation, and how to get the most from a visit here. Dublin is a relatively compact city, so walking remains the best way for discovery. Despite visiting in August, technically its hottest month, Ireland isn't always known for its reliable sunny weather, but we were certainly spoiled for today. Located in the heart of the city, Dublin Castle and its surrounding grounds are a great place to start. Built in the 13th century, its record tower is one of the oldest landmarks you'll find here. Serving for centuries as the seat of British rule within Ireland, it was finally handed over to the newly formed Irish government in 1922. You can take a tour inside the castle, but we were more than satisfied walking its outskirts. Dublin's 2 cathedrals are then both just a stone's throw away. Christ Church has been welcoming important pilgrims for almost 1,000 years, but has since lowered its bar to include people like me. A 7-minute walk away is St. Patrick's. Later in this video, I'll share how to save 20 to 40% when visiting Dublin's most popular attractions, but in the meantime, if you only want to spend your money on one of these cathedrals, we probably enjoyed this one the most, but only by a hair's whisker. One neighbourhood you'll either love, appreciate or avoid like the plague is Temple Bar. At its best, it's a picturesque cluster of cobbled streets, hosting a vibrant mixture of pubs and friendly drinking, largely to the tune of live Irish music. And it was this latter part that connected to us most. At times, music literally fills the streets, escaping open windows on a hot summer's day. Nowhere was this highlighted better for us than the old storehouse, the place we'd enjoyed lunch a few hours earlier. But this time, we were beckoned in by positive vibes alone and stumbled into this. It's hard not to feel like you've just walked into some massive cliché, but there is something comforting about Irish music and the way it seems to bring people together. Largely because everyone's pissed at their faces, but in this setting, it's hard not to enjoy. Conversely though, at its worst, Temple Bar can feel like a bit of a tourist trap, with some pubs charging over the odds prices for incredibly jam-packed interiors. Also, as the night draws closer, there is a noticeable rise of man, so if you have children, this area is probably best visited during the daytime. But if you know what you're getting into, I'd still really recommend Temple Bar as a stop, whether that's for some music, a pub lunch, or just to soak in the atmosphere. So after getting a slight taste of Irish melody, we already knew we wanted more. So on a whim, we booked this music package for the evening. Here you get to enjoy a 3-course dinner in a slightly more peaceful pub, and then a 90-minute Irish dance and music performance. With the entertainment speaking for itself, the show was elevated by some good old-fashioned Irish crack, as well as the stories behind the unique instruments they were each playing.
Chords and rhythms and stuff like that.
It was the perfect end to a perfect day, and tomorrow we'd not only be learning more about Ireland's history and how it shapes the country today, but also tasting some of its more intoxicating delights. If you are planning a trip to Dublin, the easiest way to book almost everything in one place and save some money is through this video's sponsor, Get Your Guide. With the only exception being the Book of Kells, everything coming up next in this video and everything you've seen so far is booked solely through Get Your Guide, making it super convenient for any visit to Dublin. You can just book individually for attractions as we did for the Irish music show or the upcoming day trip to the countryside. These are usually best pre-booked in advance as space can be limited, but you can also just try the Get Your Guide app for inspiration on the go. Otherwise, if you really want to pack everything in and make a great saving, I'd recommend the all-inclusive City Pass, where you can visit as many attractions as you like. If you're in the city itself for 3 days or more, expect to make savings of around 30 to 40% compared to purchasing everything separate. To check on prices and availability, everything is linked below in the video's description. As mentioned, I've also created a free written PDF guide which you can download and use for planning ahead. Thank you to Get Your Guide for making this video possible, and now, on to day 2. If you want to understand more about Ireland's fascinating history, 2 places I'd really recommend are the GPO Museum and Irish Emigration Museum. The latter focuses on what it means to be Irish and shows how the Irish identity has been shaped by its own migration of people. Now, on the surface, that sounds about as dry as my delivery, but as it turns out, it is actually pretty insightful. And that's because it also covers the influence of Irish culture through the movement of its grandfathers and great-grandfathers. It wasn't something I thought I needed to hear, but gave me a whole new perspective by the end of it. It also brought home that throughout this entire trip, we'd often overhear numerous tourists, typically from the US, retracing their own family tree back to its roots, but now with their own children. So yeah, it was just kinda comforting. Also on the north side of the Liffey is the GPO Museum. The GPO itself, or General Post Office, is a working postal service today, but its history makes it one of Dublin's more iconic buildings. It was 1916, right on the very street just outside, that Patrick Pearse proclaimed for an Irish Republic, independent of Great Britain. What followed became known as the Easter Rising, but despite lasting only 6 days long, its bullet holes can still be seen today. The attached GPO Museum then is the telling of that story, what caused the rebellion and the unforeseen aftermath that surprisingly led to Irish independence. My personal highlight was this quarter-hour mini-movie that really sets the tone well, and by the end of it, I was rallying against all these stupid bloody English people. The final room brings us up to date with discussion over the totally not complex Irish border. Overall though, it is a well-presented insight into a fascinating part of recent Irish history and is well worth a look. As mentioned earlier, neither Chiaki or myself are big drinkers, but for the sake of this video alone, we still wanted to experience two of the city's most popular attractions, that being a Jameson Whiskey tasting tour and a Guinness tasting tour, so don't talk to me about sacrifice. The Jameson distillery is home to the world's most popular Irish whiskey, so born right here in Dublin. But surprisingly, we both came away from here feeling like we just had our favourite tour guided experience of the year. And here's why. The tour starts in a pleasant bar setting with an included whiskey on the rocks or a mixer, which certainly made for some relaxing times. We were then introduced to our host Shane. He jokingly introduced himself as an out-of-work actor, but as it turned out for us, he was also an excellent presenter. Over the next hour, he'd take us through the history of Jameson and the lengthy process to get it into your glass.
That was a phrase that would define John Jameson's life, and it's really gone on to define our whiskey.
Spread across 3 different rooms, it was an excellent blend of storytelling and multimedia. The first focused on the history and inception of the company, the second on the years-long process to make the whiskey, and the last room is, of course, the final tasting, where you have 3 neat whiskies to compare and put everything you've learnt down the hatch. But it was undoubtedly Shane who was the star of the whole show. It could have just been that we were lucky with who we got, but reading reviews and speaking to others who've been on this tour as well, it seems they've really nailed the hiring process here. Who'd have thought actors could make such good storytellers? We ended our late afternoon with a walk towards the Guinness Storehouse experience. Conveniently on the way though, you'll walk past Ireland's official oldest pub, making for a useful stop along the 20-minute transfer. Established 826 years ago, a recent study went even further, revealing it to be the 5th oldest restaurant in the world that is still serving food today, only just being beaten by China selling a bucket of chicken. The Guinness tour is by design a more hands-off approach. A self-guided trip upwards through its multiple floors, it tells the story well about Ireland's most famous export, not just about its creation but also popular marketing campaigns and some interesting stories. Ultimately though, the standard Guinness self-guided tour can't live up to the personal touch of the Jameson distillery. That said, being a different experience did kind of work in its favour by reducing repetition, and you are also able to get a stoutie, which is a pint with a selfie on it. Now, Jameson doesn't do that, does it? But whether you visit both of these via the City Pass I mentioned earlier, or you book just one separately, it is advisable to reserve your spot in advance, especially during peak, as they are both amongst Dublin's most visited. In its favour, the Guinness experience does climax with a more appropriate finale. A single bar serving lots of Guinness, all surrounded by an open 360-degree view of its surrounding city and far beyond. And for our final day, this was exactly where we'd be headed. Cruising through the Irish countryside was more special than I'd prepared for. Visually, in one sense, the roads and hills and cars are very similar to what I've seen countless times back home in England. But it's either poetic license, a self-fulfilling prophecy, or there is just something very special about the feel of Irish greenery. Our day trip then took us through the stunning Wicklow Mountains, starting with Glendalough, just 90 minutes south from Dublin. Home to one of the most important monastic sites in Ireland, our incredibly knowledgeable guide Niall took us through its storied history, stretching back to the very distant 6th century. Completing our trip was the medieval city of Kilkenny, around 2 hours from Dublin. Built in the 1200s, the Kilkenny Castle is the largest attraction, both figuratively and literally. It is a relatively compact city with enough nooks and crannies to make an interesting self-discovery pretty easy. It's perfect for an afternoon's exploration on foot and lends itself really well to this sort of passing tour. For the final chapter in this story, I'll next finish with a short guide for anyone thinking of replicating any version of this trip, including Dublin's accommodation, transport, costs, and some other things I wish I knew before arriving. So for our accommodation, we found Dublin to be more expensive compared to most other European cities. As usual, our priorities for the hotel we stayed at were a central location, clean, quiet, and a great review score, and our hotel had all those things. Price-wise, looking for the months ahead at time of editing, our hotel ranges from 100 to 200 euros a night. I did only book 4 weeks in advance originally, so I'd suggest looking ahead if you want to have a bit more choice. That high price didn't give us the Ritz, but did tick all of our boxes. It was only minutes away from Trinity College, simple access from the airport, and did benefit from a kitchen so you could dine in if desired. Breakfast was extra but enjoyable, and the overall vibe of the hotel was really relaxed and friendly. I'll link where we stayed in the description below on that free PDF travel guide that I mentioned earlier, along with some alternatives. If you are searching for another hotel option and still want central, this is where we spent most of our time, south of the river. Just always check the reviews for noise. The only public transport that we used was to and from the airport, since, as mentioned, the city itself is very walkable. There are surprisingly no trains from the airport, so we found that the Dublin Express bus was the best cost-efficient method. A return ticket to the city centre cost €10 per person, and after only half an hour dropped us near our hotel. You can pre-book a specific time, but we just went to their pickup point outside the airport. It's well signposted, and then we only waited around 20 minutes for an available ride. Inside, the journey itself was nice enough and the way I would recommend. Otherwise, an Uber is around €30 each way. Some quick tips around visiting the attractions featured. If you do have good headphones, I'd advise bringing them with you as you leave the hotel. The reason being that the Emigration Museum, Christchurch, and Book of Kells audio tours all just used an app or website from your phone. So I actually just ended up using my own noise-cancelling headphones, which was a way better experience than using those 1980s foam things that they usually hand out. For those curious, people under 18 can enjoy the Jameson Whiskey and Guinness tours, but a soft drink will obviously be provided. If you're an adult who'd rather not drink alcohol, the Guinness bar did serve a non-alcoholic version which wasn't that different from the traditional one. If your interests fall more towards the whiskey Guinness side of things and you didn't want to get the City Pass, there is a specific combo ticket that might be more suitable also. You still get to experience the Jameson tour with a Jameson host, but then you're met with a second tour guide who gives an in-person experience for the Guinness side of things, which, as mentioned, is normally self-led. Again, everything is linked below in the video's description, which I know I've said before, but you'd be amazed how many people still ask. If you've made it this far, I'll link a follow-up video here, which I think you'll also enjoy. Please do let me know your thoughts on Dublin below, subscribe and like and all that fun YouTube stuff, and until the next one, thanks for watching. Suitcase Monkey.